Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Victoria from Keep It Holistic, where I talk about healthy living, motherhood, and more. And today I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite things I like to keep in my Whole Foods traditional kitchen. So these range from like if you're a beginner in this to more advanced. There's lots of different things like gadgets and little equipment pieces that you need that you wouldn't typically need in a regular kitchen because you're spending a lot more time in the kitchen. You need more equipment. You're just making things yourself instead of having them, buying them in a package. So I'll be going through all these today, different price points, from small to big. So let's get started. When I think of my traditional Whole Foods kitchen, the first thing I think of, like just me, I think of my Instant Pot and I think of a slow cooker. So if you don't like Instant Pots, you could get like a Vita Clay. It's made out of clay. You don't have to worry about like a, toxic lining on the inside of the slow cooker. But I really highly recommend the Instant Pot. And that is because it is made out of stainless steel, which is a little bit healthier than some of the other stuff that other, pots are made out of. It also does slow cook. So it's like a multi-use kind of thing. It makes yogurt. You can make like soup in it. I also have the air fryer lid, and I don't use the air fryer insert because it's non-stick, but I'll just use the lid, and it works just the same. If you use the trivet that comes with it and then the lid, it makes it so you can get like, more crispy chicken. Like you could cook a whole chicken in the Instant Pot, like on slow cook if you wanted to. Then you could put that air fryer lid on and then like crisp up the skin. So that is a really high use item in our kitchen. And then another thing is I use my grain mill a lot. Now, milling your own grain isn't necessarily essential, but I did just make a video on this. So definitely check that out if you're interested in milling your own grain. It's not essential, but it's nice. Two other things that I really like to keep in my kitchen is a blender and a food processor and an immersion blender. Like I use all of these. Now you could get away without the immersion blender. So if you need an item, I would highly recommend a blender. I recommend like a Vitamix or something that is more higher powered. I have a Ninja blender and it works really well. I'm able to do a lot in it. Food processor really comes in handy. It really like lightens the load with all the chopping and cutting. Like you can make like cauliflower rice in it. I do that a lot. It works really well for shredding up your cabbage for sauerkraut. And you can just have like this little blade that goes on the top. I don't know what the term of it is, but it's like the slicing blade. You put that on top and you just take chunks of cabbage and put it in there and it shreds them up. Like it really lightens the load. It saves time. So I highly recommend that. It makes things a little more efficient, especially if you're doing larger batches. Another thing that people really like to have is they really like to have a juicer. Now I personally don't have one, but this is especially good if you're like on the GAPS diet or you're doing a lot of juicing. Another thing that's really helpful is having some type of vegetable spiralizer, and you can have like a handheld crank one. They do make a KitchenAid attachment that you can put your veggies in and then shred, or spiralize them in. It comes with like a peeler and stuff too. It's on my wish list. I really want to get one of those. And I also highly recommend, KitchenAid if you want. It really is good at mixing up stuff. Egg whites, you can make whipped cream in it. I use it a lot. I make my scrambled eggs in it. So that is an option, but it's not essentially necessary. Now it's also very important the type of cookware that you have. So you want to make sure that you have cast iron, glass, stainless steel, maybe some stoneware or something. I highly recommend, I've already made a video about my cast iron pans. You can check that out too. But I keep a whole stock of cast iron pans. I have like the regular, like a mini pan, a medium sized one, a big one. I have a Dutch oven, a muffin tin, like a cast iron one, and I have like a griddle. So having a variety of pans and non-toxic pans is really, really essential. So if you're into the Weston A. Price diet like me, you really want to have some kind of cheesecloth, strainers, like non-reactive strainers. I have like a plastic strainer and I have a metal strainer. And you want to have like a nut milk bag, things that you can strain stuff out of, because when you do like ferments, like you're making kefir and stuff, you need to have something that will strain out the liquid and then keep the grains in there, for example. You really need a bunch of jars. Like you're gonna need lots of different types of mason jars, different sizes. And I highly recommend getting the wide mouth lids because then you can easily fit stuff in there. And then if you have the budget for it, having fermentation lids and weights is really helpful, especially the weights. because you need to weigh down like the sauerkraut and stuff so it stays below the brine. And they also reduce the mold risk. On the same note, it's also really helpful to have a funnel, a canning funnel, because that really helps get stuff into the jars. Another thing that I like to keep around is having glass food storage containers, having beeswax wrap, having alternatives to aluminum foil. This is kind of controversial, but I do use silicone covers for like my bakeware. Like, so if I'm making a casserole and it needs to be covered, instead of using aluminum foil, I'll use a silicone cover. It's like a little thing that sits on top, and it usually doesn't touch the food, so I just will use it instead of using the aluminum foil. So along those same lines, I highly recommend having a stock pot as part of your cookware, because you're going to be making a lot of soups and stocks. Make sure you have like ladles and stuff. Make sure they're not plastic. I wouldn't recommend using plastic like spoons and stuff for that, like that for cooking. You want to stick to stainless steel or wood. As for freezer storage, I will use wax paper and tie that up. Make sure you have some twine or something that you can use to tie things up with. Using unbleached parchment paper is really critical. It helps save, like, you know, you from having like to clean up a mess on your cookie sheet, and it's non-toxic. You just lay out the parchment paper. Another thing that I like to keep in my kitchen, I have a Berkey water filter, and I highly recommend having some kind of filtration device for your water. You know, don't drink the tap water. I would not recommend it. I would recommend having some kind of filter to filter out some of the chemicals in the water. I'm just kind of thinking of some miscellaneous things here, but I really appreciate having a deep freezer. Having a deep freezer has really saved us like money and time, because when you have a deep freezer, you can get like a whole half of a cow or something, or you can, if you need to stock up on raw milk, you can have a bunch of gallons in there. You know, if you can't get to the farm, if you live far away from a raw milk farm, that is really, really helpful. It just like saves you a lot of time and money, and then you can easily like eat from the freezer instead of having to constantly go out to the store someplace to pick up your food. Another thing that some people like to have, now I don't use this a lot, but having a dehydrator is helpful, like especially if you like to make crispy nuts. That is one of those recipes that is in Nourishing Traditions. I have a similar one on my website. You can check that out. But when you're making things like crispy nuts, or you want to dehydrate some fruit or something, it's really helpful to have a dehydrator and to have like the sheets and stuff that go in the dehydrator. So that is an option. It's not 100% necessary. So this is just a summary of things that have been really helpful for me, or that I've seen other people have. And these are in addition to things you'll find in your regular kitchen. Like in a regular kitchen, you'll have a cutting board and knives, garlic press, mixing bowls. This will help you produce your own food and not have to go out to the grocery store all the time and rely on the grocery store. You can produce your own food in your own kitchen if you have the right tools. You know, if you're making sourdough bread, for example, you're gonna need a Banneton basket, you'll need a Dutch oven. That stuff's gonna be helpful. You know, even a stand mixer is gonna be helpful sometimes. You know, having the right space to roll out your dough. Like that stuff you don't really normally have in a normal kitchen, but you do have in a Whole Foods kitchen. So if you have any questions, let's leave me a comment down below. And if you have anything to add, like maybe there's something that I didn't mention in this video, go ahead and add it in the comments. And please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys again soon. Be well, guys.